Hey guys, this video is just to cover off on the new functionality for invoicing and billing in Taco. And there's some information that's stored against each broker now, just in regards to the entity that they want billed. You can update that yourself on behalf of your broker, so you can access their preferences. And you can do that by clicking on the broker. And up here we can go to Edit Preferences, and you can see there's a new Billing tab here. And under billing, you can actually put something like an entity that you want billed. The direct debit ref will use that internally, and if they want billing sent to a particular staff member, you can put a alternate email. That's optional, otherwise it'll just go to their own address. So that's just some billing configuration that you can do for your brokers before you send them an invoice. Once you've got that right, I'm just going to cancel and go back here. And normally you would go into a transaction. So just as an example, here's the way that we set a charge. We go into I'm just going to find a client, click on a transaction, go to the submission or settlement tab and add a charge, and the charge goes in with a description. And you simply click on save. Now I'm going to actually backdate this. If you want your charge to appear on the previous month's invoice because maybe you missed a charge, then you can go here and go back and click on a date in the previous month, and I'll click on save for that. And now there's also a new way of adding charges. If you don't want a transaction, or if you just want to quickly add a charge and you're not in a transaction, you can search for the actual broker as opposed to the client. And from the broker you can go into here and say charge invoice. And if you do that, of course, it doesn't know who the client is, but you can just type that in manually. And of course give it a description. And I might, just so we can play with this one, I'm going to backdate that as well to last month and save it and close. So that's the two ways to add charges outside of the actual billing screen itself. Once we go to billing, which we can do through here, you can actually now by default it's going to take you to the current month, and it's red because we don't want to do any invoicing or anything in the current month. We're normally invoicing for the previous month, but that's just so you can preview where you're up to, and it gives you a summary of how much you're charging and stuff like that. If I go to the previous month, I'll be able to see the two charges that I added for that particular broker. And so when I click on preview, it lets me see the invoice, and you can also see the entity that we put in earlier against that broker. To close the preview, you click on the X here, and it takes you back to the summary. The summary shows you a workflow up the top here, and also the total for that particular broker. So the workflow goes through different stages. The first thing we do once the invoice is ready to send is ask you to validate it, and we do that by clicking on request validation, and it will send you an email of a link back to here, so you can come in and click the validate. So for you, you'll come in, preview it, of course. Once you're happy with it, click the validate button, and now we know it's ready to send to the broker. You can also, if you wanted to make changes or add charges, you can add a charge directly from here, and it will take you in, and same thing, you've got to put a client in if you do it from here, but pretty much you can add a charge directly from that screen. And you can also, if you get a charge incorrect, you can also click on delete charge, and that's the only way you can get rid of a charge. You can't do it from the actual transaction, client transaction. So if you make a mistake and you want to get rid of a charge out of an invoice, come into the invoice itself and click on delete charge, and it will get rid of it completely. If you delete everything off an invoice, it will give you the option to delete the entire invoice, and get rid of it out of the system completely. Once an invoice is ready to send, we will click on here, we will send the invoice. It gets sent to the broker, and then there's a reminder system and also an option to pay mark off as received once it's been received, and that completes the workflow for that one. So that's the 3 ways you can add charges, and it also shows you a couple of things in terms of administering those invoices. Hopefully that's helpful.